stop for just a second. I want you to think about how heavily you rely on whatever device you're using right now to listen to this. Got it? Okay, now imagine if it just shut off, completely dead. And not just your phone or laptop. Imagine your refrigerator, your car, and your entire city's water supply all doing the exact same thing at the exact same moment. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking a really fascinating piece of modern survivalist literature called David's Shield. What makes this source material so incredibly compelling to analyze isn't just the apocalyptic scenario it paints, it's how masterfully it blends three totally different worlds to grab your attention: modern anxieties about cutting-edge technology, ancient biblical prophecy, and some highly effective direct response marketing psychology. We're going to objectively break down exactly how this text constructs its narrative to take a reader from a state of mild curiosity to absolute pulse-pounding urgency. The manifesto hooks you right away with this really stark claim: the next war won't be fought with bullets or bombs. When I first read that opening line, it immediately flipped my expectations. Right out of the gate, the author, who writes under the pen name Henry Morris, establishes this urgent, totally unconventional premise. He's actively pulling us away from those old Cold War anxieties, the nuclear silos and air raid sirens. Instead, he's painting a picture of a silent, invisible conflict. You're not going to see it on the evening news, and there's no traditional physical invasion. He sets the stage for a technological blackout that happens in the blink of an eye, completely neutralizing a superpower without firing a single conventional shot. So, here's the roadmap for today's Explainer. First, we'll look at the AI EMP threat. Then, we'll dive into a biblical cyber war. Third is the 72-hour grid collapse. Fourth, we'll explore the Amish survival blueprint. And finally, we'll break down the ultimate preparedness pitch. Let's jump right in. Section 1. The AI EMP threat. Invisible destruction. The specific mechanism of destruction the author outlines here is a hypersonic HIMP. That stands for a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse. The text claims that adversary nations have already developed this exact capability and could use it to paralyze the American grid in under 5 minutes. And this is where the narrative really digs into our modern fears, right? It's not described as some fiery, localized explosion. Instead, it's an invisible surge detonated way up above the stratosphere. It would just cascade down and instantly fry every unprotected circuit across the continental United States. We are talking about a sudden, total technological paralysis. Cars bricked on the highway, municipal water pumps frozen, hospital life support systems instantly shutting off. It creates this immediate and terrifying societal standstill. Now, to move this threat away from mere science fiction and into plausible reality, the author anchors his claims in recent historical precedent. He specifically cites a 2014 attack in Yemen where 23 million people lost power due to targeted strikes on the grid, and a 2015 event in Pakistan where basic sabotage blacked out 140 million people. It's a highly effective tactic. By pointing to events that actually happened, the author makes a sci-fi doomsday scenario feel dangerously real. The text argues that if millions of people can be plunged into darkness by just a few individuals with rocket-propelled grenades and basic sabotage tools, well then a highly advanced nation-state armed with hypersonic EMPs could easily bring the entire US to its knees. Moving on to Section 2, a biblical cyber war. The rise of AI. This is where the text takes a really fascinating turn. It doesn't just blame foreign adversaries. It elevates this geopolitical crisis into a spiritual one. The manifesto connects Silicon Valley directly to the Book of Revelation. It frames artificial intelligence not just as an unpredictable or dangerous new technology, but as a godless, all-seeing machine acting as the biblical beast. The author points out that AI is already monitoring our bank accounts, our smart homes, and our private communications. Psychologically speaking, this is brilliant. It perfectly merges a very modern, tangible fear of algorithms and data tracking with deep, ancient apocalyptic anxieties. In this narrative, an EMP strike isn't just a military action anymore. It's framed almost as divine intervention, a necessary reset against a digital system that has grown far too powerful and arrogant. To back up the physical vulnerability of this sprawling beast system, the author cites a staggering statistic. He references a leaked 2014 government report from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. This report allegedly claimed that out of 55,000 electrical substations in the United States, destroying just 9 of them in the correct sequence could trigger a coast-to-coast blackout lasting up to 18 months. 9 out of 55,000. Think about those unguarded chain-link substations you probably drive past every single day. The author uses this extreme ratio to underscore a terrifying fragility in the systems we completely take for granted. All right, Section 3, the 72-hour grid collapse. Descent into chaos. Once the threat is firmly established, the author walks the reader through a chilling, day-by-day timeline to illustrate society's rapid descent into absolute chaos. On day 1, it's mostly confusion. You try to pick up your phone to call your family, but there's just dead air. Traffic lights are out, and your modern cars are totally unresponsive. By day 2, the true reality sets in. The food in your useless freezer begins to spoil, and the municipal pumps fail, which means no tap water. By day 3, the text argues, the sheer desperation for basic resources turns into blind rage. Widespread looting and violence sweep through neighborhoods as the thin veneer of civilization completely evaporates in under 72 hours. Just a wall of silence, so thick it hums. Notice the incredibly visceral, dramatic language used here. That isn't accidental. The author is expertly crafting a physical, sensory experience for the reader. By describing the heavy, eerie silence of a world where every refrigerator, HVAC system, and highway has suddenly gone permanently dead, the text bypasses pure logic. It evokes a deep emotional response, making the threat feel incredibly immediate and claustrophobic. And the text pushes that emotional fear to its absolute limit with this specific figure. The author references a stark warning attributed to former CIA Director James Woolsey, that in the event of a permanent nationwide grid collapse, up to 9 out of 10 Americans could die within the first year. This is a classic appeal to authority. By name-dropping a former intelligence director, it grounds a hyperbolic apocalyptic claim in serious government-level credibility. And note, this catastrophic death toll isn't from the initial blast itself. It's from the grim secondary effects of starvation, rapid disease spread, and total societal collapse.
Which brings us to Section 4, the Amish Survival Blueprint, Old World Wisdom. Having established this catastrophic problem, the manifesto now has to offer a solution. And it's a brilliant pivot. The author explicitly rejects the modern survival industry, arguing that prepping for the apocalypse with the very technology that's going to be destroyed makes zero sense. He basically tells the reader that dropping $3,000 on a fancy solar generator just means you'll have a very expensive, very useless lawn ornament after an EMP hits. Instead, he champions true Amish wisdom. The argument is that real survival relies on 6,000-year-old traditional methods that have already been proven to work, preserving vital medicine like insulin without a fridge, natural water filtration, and old-world self-reliance. To legitimize this approach, the text introduces a highly compelling origin story. The author claims to have partnered with a brilliant former physicist named Charles Green. According to the narrative, Green saw the writing on the wall and spent 2 full years living with an extreme old-world Pennsylvania Amish community. This is a masterful use of the fish-out-of-water trope. You have this high-tech scientist humbling himself, learning to churn butter, and live completely off the land. It creates a relatable protagonist who embarks on a hero's journey to learn exactly how they heat, heal, and thrive without a single volt of electricity, inviting the reader to learn those exact same secrets. Finally, Section 5, the ultimate preparedness pitch. This brings us to the culmination of the narrative. The whole explainer transitions perfectly from a doomsday warning into a direct response sales pitch, offering a suite of products specifically designed to neutralize the exact fears it just spent pages building up. The core blueprint promises actionable knowledge, like building an EMP-proof shield from literal junk drawer parts. Remember the fear of medicine spoiling on day 2? Well, there's a guide to creating a natural pharmacy from your pantry. Worried about those violent looters on day 3? There's a bonus guide on creating off-grid home security traps without relying on electric cameras. The whole thing is packaged as a complete, self-contained ecosystem of survival. Which brings us to the pricing strategy, and this is a truly textbook example of price anchoring. The text reminds the reader that typical preppers spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on heavy food stockpiles and backup solar kits that will be instantly fried. Against that backdrop of massive financial waste, positioning this blueprint as a one-time $67 fee feels like an absolute bargain. But more importantly, the copy frames this not just as a consumer purchase, but as an act of righteous obedience. It literally transforms the act of buying a PDF into a moral duty, making the buyer feel like a proactive, responsible protector of their family rather than just another customer. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to take away from this explainer. The text of David Shield undeniably taps into very real, very modern anxieties about how fragile our highly interconnected, electrified world truly is. But, as we've seen, it also demonstrates how masterfully those valid fears can be harnessed, structured, and ultimately monetized. So, what do you think? Are we genuinely standing on the precipice of a sudden technological dark age? Or is the primal fear of the dark simply the ultimate timeless marketing tool? Definitely something to think about the next time you flip a light switch.